Hi there and welcome to NLF Live on this Freebie Friday. This is Paul Brennan with you on the topic today of what is a confidential informant. You have no doubt heard that term in TV shows and movies and maybe even in real life with people you know who've had criminal cases. What is a confidential informant? What can you do about them? Are you entitled to know who they are? Because those are the burning questions, right? Essentially, a confidential informant is somebody that the police department uses in a case, and they are able to keep that person's identity secret when they prepare the police report. So, for example, if you are arrested and charged with a drug offense or a weapons offense, and the police talk about, we found the person that we arrested through information obtained from a confidential informant, and you are ultimately charged with offenses. Well, the first thing you are probably going to want to do and ask your lawyer about is, hey, who's this confidential informant and how is it that they can keep their name secret? I want to know who they are. Because in some instances, this person has had multiple contacts with the defendant prior to their being arrested. So it's not just one day or one tip, right? And so you're going to want to know what this person said to the police and who they are. And the law basically says if the confidential informant is somebody who is, quote, a mere finger pointer, you don't get to find out who they are. But if they're a little bit more involved than simply pointing the finger, you may be entitled to find out who they are. Let me back up just a second and talk a little bit about what kind of stuff does a confidential informant typically tell police officers. So in a drug case or a weapons case, a confidential informant may be somebody who has purchased drugs from a defendant on a prior occasion. They go to the police and they say, hey, I bought drugs from this guy, and if you go to where he's standing, you'll see that he's selling drugs. You can arrest him for selling drugs. And if the police, in fact, take that information and they go and they get very detailed information from the confidential informant. This person typically sells powder cocaine in small Ziploc baggies. He stands on the corner of 3rd and Main Street, tends to sell it around 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. If the police show up, and sure enough, they see a person that matches the description given and is doing the kinds of things that the confidential informant describes, selling cocaine, small Ziploc baggies in that location, then the police have an independent reason to arrest that person. If they observe criminal actions, right? And the confidential informant merely just pointed them in the direction of the defendant. Well, in that instance, if you're charged, if you're that defendant, you are not likely to find out the identity of that person because they are, as I mentioned earlier, a, quote, mere finger pointer. It's a little bit different if the confidential informant says, hey, I've bought drugs from this person in the past. I'll go and buy drugs from them now, and then you can arrest them. So if the confidential informant goes into a house and the police remain on the outside of the house, confidential informant goes in, engages in a transaction, comes back out, gives police officers the drugs that he allegedly bought from the person, and then the police go in and arrest them. Well, that's a little different, right? Because the police didn't see the criminal behavior. They didn't see a crime. They are making the arrest solely on the word of the confidential informant, in which case the district attorney and the police would have to disclose the name of the confidential informant. Now, confidential informants, or sometimes they're referred to as CIs, abbreviations by the police, they are often paid by the police for the information that they give to the police. And so you can imagine some of these people are people who are facing charges of their own, right? They get arrested by the cops for engaging in some kind of criminal behavior, and they turn to the police and they say, hey, look, I can give you some information about other people. They're trying to get out of the trouble that they're in. And so they will say, I'll work with you, and I'll give you names and information on other cases, right? And they get paid for this. It's not a secret. They get paid. And again, if they are someone that is actively involved as a material witness, well, then they're going to have to, their identity is going to have to be turned over. And your lawyer will bring a motion to disclose the identity of the confidential informant. And if the judge agrees with your lawyer and says the police or the district attorney have to divulge or reveal the name of that confidential informant, there's a very good chance that the district attorney may dismiss the case because the police department may say, look, we don't want to reveal this person. They have been giving us a lot of good information. We don't want to jeopardize their safety. We'd rather just dismiss this one individual case than turn over their name, because then, of course, it's going to jeopardize future operations with this CI. So it's a great tactic for you and your attorney, if there's a case pending against you that involves the use of the confidential informant, to bring a motion to disclose that person's name, because it may very well result in the dismissal of the case. And again, if it's a case where the CI is not a really material witness, they're just the finger pointer, the judge may not order that that person's identity be disclosed, and they can still proceed against you without disclosing that information. And, you know, of course, in criminal cases, you have an absolute right to know things about the people who are pointing the finger at you, or are witnesses, rather, against you. And so you can't have a trial with somebody who doesn't come to court, or comes to court and refuses to say what their name is or even disclose their identity. So the whole point is trying to disclose or find out the identity of the confidential informant is definitely a tactic to pursue if this person really has a material role in the case against you. So you'll see it oftentimes, no surprise here, but oftentimes in TV shows and movie shows, the use of confidential informants not really portrayed accurately, but when it is brought in a case against you, absolutely step one is to bring a motion to try to disclose that. And those motions are heard, obviously, in confidence. The judge will meet with the police officer, ask them certain questions about the informant, what involvement they have, how much they're getting paid, and the judge will ultimately make a decision about revealing the identity or not. And like I said, most cases, not always, but most cases, the police department, the district attorney's office will more than likely dismiss the case rather than disclose the identity of an informant, because, again, they really want to keep working with this person. And if they have bigger cases that the informant has brought them, perhaps your case will be on the smaller side, and you'll be in luck and have the motion granted and the case dismissed. So that's it for Freebie Friday. Everybody have a great weekend, and we'll see you back again here on Monday.